Welcome to EduClubTV, initiative of mapmystudy.com, which is one of the most popular online platforms for college admission, where students get the opportunity to apply to 25 different countries, 2,000 different colleges, and 20,000 different programs, all faculties, all areas of study. As part of our initiative, we are reaching out to very senior delegates in the high school to understand and learn a little bit more about what challenges we are facing today, and also get more insights from them about how we can innovate and what we can do to move forward. So for this today, we have a very special guest, Ms Shanthi Menon, who's the founder principal for Deens Academy in Bangalore. So I'd like to invite her today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to EduClubTV. Welcome to Map My Study.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start with you giving us a little bit of intro of the school. I know you're the founder principal, so that must be challenging. You probably had a different view and aspect coming from the education sector, being in the school industry. So can you let us give us a little bit more insight about the school, and how did you bring any new opportunities in the school as a founder principal?
So we are about 15 plus years old, and Deens Academy was established at a time when there were not too many CBSE schools in the Whitefield area. So we found instant clientele because it was easy for people to subscribe to the CBSE stream, and therefore we did have a very quick growth and phenomenal growth over I would say about 3 to 5 years. We were in full capacity, and we had to start looking for opportunities of starting a new campus. So that's a quick background about the school. Why we were, or at least I would think that why people started choosing to be with Deens was the center of our philosophy was about everything is about the student. So while I'm sure a lot of schools would talk about the same, but we made it our mission to ensure that we tried to, everything that we did was about giving the children a platform to learn, to grow, to develop, to explore themselves. And therefore, I think, and I have been able to sustain this over the past 15 years, including into my second campus, full-fledged campus that we have on another location close by. So I think that pretty much sums up what Deens Academy is all about. Essentially a platform for children to explore and grow and to, create individuals of themselves through the kind of opportunities that we've been able to give them.
That's interesting. So again, this is a personal question. So what's, as a founder principal, what was your real role? Were you starting from the infrastructure, the building, hiring process, curriculum, everything, or was it, how do you define that?
Absolutely. So when I first went into when I first met with, so I have funders, people who have funded the whole opportunity. It was their dream to start something which was slightly different from the run-of-the-mill kind of schools in those days. So when I first met with the promoters of the school, we met at their home. There was no building, nothing, no plan at all. All they knew is they wanted to start a school, and their child happened to be with me in the previous stint or the organization that I was with, and therefore they had approached me, and a couple of my colleagues. We were a team together, and they approached us. So we started with remodeling an existing building that they had, and from there we started hiring. We worked with architects. We worked with creating our own curriculum. We didn't initially want to have a curriculum which is from outside because we knew that there was something that we wanted to do differently. And therefore we created our own curriculum. We hired teaching faculty, we hired support staff, everything from scratch. Pretty much, it has been a beautiful journey because starting with sowing the seeds, standing on site, watching construction happen, to what it is today when I get a lot of opportunity to sit back and actually watch and see and review. I think it's been a beautiful journey, and it's been a very gratifying journey. I think we've more or less being able to get ourselves on the path of the vision that we set out for.
Oh, that's very interesting, and I'm sure that was a lot challenging for you. So, can you define what your leadership style is? So, because I think as a founder, there were a lot of challenges, and that style changes quite a bit. How do you define yourself as a leader? What's your leadership style?
I would think I had to bring in a whole lot of, and don a whole lot of hats for different occasions, starting with being part of the team. So I started with even being in a class myself, teaching with students, being a class teacher and all of that. So a lot of my job has been being part of the team. I started that way. It's been a very democratic method of running the whole place because I believe that everybody comes with good ideas. And fortunately for me, every team member that I've picked up, I've never looked at, the kind of credentials in terms of their qualifications or their qualifications in terms of our education sector. I looked at people who were like-minded. So we were able to, bring out the best in each of us, and I looked for strengths. I essentially am the kind who likes to exploit a person's strength rather than, look at a person's weakness. So we worked, I essentially feel it was a very democratic, and it still is, a very democratic style that I have of working at both my campuses. I'm essentially a mentor. I am performance driven. I believe that everybody needs to give their best. But of course, there is a lot that I allow within that. You're allowed to innovate. You're allowed to come in with your new ideas, bounce it all off, work together with strategies, implement it, see how it works. And if it doesn't, we shelve it. So that's the kind of way I've done, worked through many years. Essentially, I think today I stand, in the shadows and I watch. I still am hugely working as a mentor to a lot of my colleagues. I work with their strengths, and then we supplement the gaps that they have in order to deliver what our vision has been. So that's pretty much the style that I've had through the many years.
So it's a lot to do with building a good team, I guess, and that's where you progress.
Absolutely. And it wouldn't work because I don't come with huge credentials or huge backing or any such thing when we started the whole place. Today, I would think that, at least I would like to feel that I've created something that can stay on. There's a legacy that I can leave on even if I am in the shadows today. And I think that's to do with the kind of empowerment that my team with me has.
So look, you had mentioned something interesting, and because it's a new school, 2006, you were the founder, principal, you had a little bit of your own, a little leverage to say how you could develop the curriculum, the culture. So were you able to bring any new opportunity or a different culture to the school when you started this? And if yes, what was it?
Okay, so I come from very traditional schooling, workspaces where very clearly there's an educator, there are parents, and there are students. And I firmly believe that unless the three stakeholders are one body, it's not going to work. And that is the basis of the whole philosophy, like I said, at Deens. So what we did do is I worked with the strengths of each of my team members. I also like to look at the strengths of every child. We've never taken the cream of society. We do assessments for children when they enter the school, but essentially the assessment is to throw up where does the school need to help that child. There's certain areas a child can navigate on its own, but there are a lot that possibly that we as Deens Academy can contribute to the child. So that is something that I think worked very well for us because we created individual kind of tailored programs for children within the classroom. I wouldn't say every single child had a very personal program, but largely we were catering to more than 5 to 6 kinds of children, learners within the classroom. And most kids would be mapped into this kind of system. So we were able to reach out to the last child, therefore. And even today, we're working at creating, not very obvious groups, but understanding children by their strengths and trying to leverage their learning in order for them to move from one strength to another. That's even today the endeavor that I'm working with. And I have a team who's working on that. So this has pretty much been our endeavor right through. And this is not just, the academic front, but on all fronts of the child, starting with maybe building confidence, with the various kind of activities that we've been able to, provide students with. The cultural aspect, the value acquisition aspect, the attitude building aspect. So each of these things that we have been focusing on for every child independently. While we did all of that, I didn't think it's easy to do any of it unless I partnered with the parent. So I always believed that, the parents were very closely associated with the school. I've tried to always maintain that kind of relationship with the parent community, with Deens. So we get them involved in a lot of things with not just their children. There are a lot of parents who they have an ability to give a lot more to other students too. So they are part of the whole process of our working at Deens Academy.
Yeah, it's important you mentioned that, because we see a lot of schools, I especially see in North India, in Delhi, and some schools in Mumbai, probably in somewhere in Bangalore. Now, parents have become part of a core group, more like a subcommittee, where they're now, actively participating in the upkeep or suggestions or, maybe other areas. Do you see that at some stage it's also an hindrance, or is it good to be that open?
All right, so it comes with its set of challenges. So we include them in terms of they have the ability to give us any amount of suggestions.
Right.
But it is not very clearly right at the outset. I've always told them that the discretion of implementing it is with the school. For the simple reason that we are not catering to just a small group of children. Now, the parent who gives us a suggestion possibly talks about his own child's need or the need of 5 to 10 children around his own child. But I'm catering to 1,801 campus and another 1,000. So it's about 3,500 children that I'm looking at. So when we implement something, it has to be workable for all of these children, at least largely. So I think I've been able to buy that with the parents. I've been able to get that trust from them on that front. So they do give me suggestions, and suggestions are on all fronts, from policies to, like you said, upkeep. They come in for safety audits, they come in for cleanliness audits, they do all of that, and I'm open with all of that. They come back with some absolutely scathing, responses to a lot of times, but at the end of it, it just helps us because we're putting things in place. We also have them giving us, kind of suggestions on the academic front, but they're very clearly, certain things work, but they're not academicians. So there are certain times that I have to heavily filter what they're expecting from our front. So very simple example would be parents would write to me saying that, children are doing excessive writing. Now, they wouldn't know that as your child grows up, and this is largely from primary school children's parents, and they wouldn't know that as they grow older, we still can't escape that in the Indian education system, and they have no taste of it as of now. So I have to keep telling them that I will check to see, I'll moderate, I will check to see, where the excess is happening, but trust me on what we are doing with your child. So it has been a healthy, open atmosphere in that sense. Parents constantly write to us and, meet with me with feedback, but they've also trusted us, trusted me in, executing what is possible for the larger school's benefit. So that way, the challenge has been moderated quite comfortably, I would say.
I think a good balance is always good to have and look at a different perspective.
Exactly.
So what's the school plan now, and what's your plan for the next 10 years for the school?
I can't even think of what the plan for the next 10 years is, but I can tell you what the plan for the next 2 years is, because From when we started in 2006 to what it is today, 15 years later, I see we have changed. Our basic philosophy has remained the same. It's all about children. But our whole approach to things had to change because things changed around. So I can't, like I said, tell you for the next 2 years what our plan is, but I'm certainly not comfortable committing what happens in the next 5 to 10 years. Come what may, whatever the changes in the education system is going to be. I think at the end of it, it's all about, creating the best opportunities for children. I think the foundation for children's education, apart from knowledge acquisition and whatever, technical or, the best pedagogical practices that are available, the basis of all of the education is building value systems, building attitudes, and building readiness in students to embrace change. I mean, today more than ever, we know that they have to be able to be doing that. We know that change is there, but it has never been as on our faces as it is today. So these are things that I think we continue having to focus on. Help them how to grab opportunities, help them how to think on their feet, help them how to explore innovations, and essentially help them how to find happiness. In this system where people are running a rat race, every one of us will deny the fact that, or try to hoodwink ourselves by saying that we are not running a rat race, but we are. I would say I am. I'm constantly trying to get an edge for my school than with the numerous schools which are sprouted around us. But if we stay true to these few things, the basis of education, building the right kind of character for a child, I'm certain we will always be ahead in the game. So I constantly tell children this, anything you want can be Googled, but these are things that you can't Google. You're not going to get it ready-made anywhere. You need to cultivate it and, trust that we are pushing certain things, because at the end of it, there is benefit for you lifelong. So I think that continues to be my game plan, at least for the next 2 to 5 years.
That's wonderful. And I think you mentioned something interesting. You really can't, you can Google happiness, but I think it's going to be very different to every individual. Very interesting. So how will you build happiness? I mean, you mentioned how are you able to build that individual happiness aspect for a student where we have so many challenges? And you're right, peer pressure, parent pressure, community pressure, so many things, and it's a rat race. But I think we learn very later in life the meaning of real happiness.
Absolutely.
So how are you able to build that at the early stage for these?
Especially when children innately are happy beings. It's we adults who kill it, I think, sustained effort that we have to kill it for them. And we do this by, a few things. By putting them into the rat race, by giving them false ambitions. If a child is confident about his own strengths, he will always remain happy. Now, the strength doesn't need to be academic marks. So a child who's possibly a very good cricketer finds his happiness in cricket. Allow him to be what he wants to be. So I always believe that, we don't know what the career opportunities are going to be, but allow the child to be confident in what he's able to do. And so that is something that we have tried to make a pattern in the school. If children are only doing a 40% academically, I do meet with parents. I do tell them that, I'm sure your child can move up to 45, but don't kill his happiness with his music or his dance or his cricket or, whatever else strength he has. So I think working on a child's strength gives him the confidence, which gives him the happiness. He knows that nobody can touch him on his strength. And that's where he starts building his innate sense of happiness. I think it has worked a lot with a lot of students. I'm not saying that it worked 100% with all my students, because it's not just one voice from the school, but there are multiple voices. Like you said, societal pressure, peer pressure, all of that is there in a child's thing. But we have to, as educational institutions, start helping a child to find his own strength. Because
Yeah.
the minute
Don't
a
you
child,
think?
sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just from what you said, I think it's a lot to do with the outcome when we talk about students, parents, and the school as an ecosystem. Do you feel that if if the student or the child knows at an early stage that I can be free to choose my own career path, and there's a good outcome of the career path, the pressure on the student is much lesser, and I think that's where the knowledge is very less.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would think that, there is a huge cognizance on that front from all sides. If you look at what NEP is saying today, it's talking about vocational training as early as grade 9. And,
Yeah.
Children can start choosing subjects from then on. I think that the fact is that people have started realizing that it's better to train children for what they are ready, for what their strengths are, for what their interests are, rather than, train everybody in a kind of rollout method where everybody passes through the science stream and everybody, learns a certain kind of thing. That's not my aptitude. Why am I wasting my time there when I'll be so happy doing something else? And today there is large amount of recognition for different kinds of careers. So careers which are most unheard of, and people are recognizing it and actually giving it its due. So children have also started realizing that it's okay for me to be I might not become world-class cricketer, but if I'm playing today and being happy about it, I can do something on the sports field or sports front a few years from now. So that kind of thing has, at least in the children, that develops a kind of happiness. Now the job is to start working with parents about it. And so that is a huge challenge, but I've already started seeing a change in parents' outlook on that front. People are willing to explore. People are willing to allow children to take those gap years, decide for themselves, kind of thing. So I think we're going the right way. It will take some time. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think, but there's a massive gap, and I think as Map My Study, we're also trying to fill in that gap and open up the parents and students, because we, in quite a few of my interviews with a lot of school principals and administrators, we realize that a lot of them are going to the science stream. And when I ask them that why the commerce is as good as this, or even humanities, if I look at globally, humanities is never seen as a low, a low choice of subject. People are not seen as failures who choose that kind of subject. But I know 15, 20 years back when we were in school, it's, oh, you've got humanities, you may not be smart enough.
Well, I was on that boat too, because I've done humanities and I come from a family which is completely technical, Everybody's an engineer and everybody's a doctor in our family. So
wow, okay. So that must have been a challenge for you. So I think we're trying to fill that gap. And I think if as a school, you can take that responsibility to show that student and that parent a bit of a path to say, look, even if you go commerce or humanities, there's a good outcome, there's a good salary you can get, there's a good career path you can build. And that's the start point.
So Mr. Bhatia, I have a point here. We don't have, so I would say that there are a large number of takers for science, but we have a very large number who have chosen design. That's a path that many of our students are trying to walk through. And this, I would think, is because we started many years back trying to look at getting them towards innovation, towards thinking, differently. Thinking, I would say, out of the box is a cliched, phrase today, but looking at innovation and looking at creative thinking has been part of our whole system. So we have a large number of children who aspire for that space. So we have good number of children takers for humanities and commerce still today, and a huge number of our students who have gone the design way even over the last many years. So I wouldn't really, kind of lean towards the science aspect at all from my experience in school.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. So yeah, but our experience over the last few months of talking to so many senior leaders, and I think it's not their fault. It's a lot to do with the parents trying to drive the kids to that stream a lot more, and that's where the decision happens. Look, how has technology played a role in your school? And I know in the last 18 months, almost 2 years now, we've all used technology in some way. But what is your school's role in that? How have you embraced it?
Um, well, so like any other school, we have adapted to the whole requirement of using technology, but it's not been recent. Um, we're possibly the first school way back in 2006 that we had smart boards installed in every classroom. And at that point, when we were buying this, we knew that the data said that we were the first school to do it. So starting from there, we realized that technology can make learning interesting. It can make a lot of things faster in a classroom, for instance, assessments and things like that. Feedback is another thing that we found technology worked a lot. We also use it a lot to build in a huge amount of life skills. So children are able to research, children are able to present, children are able to talk. So building confidence, research skills, building team skills, all of this came about while we were able to use technology. But I'm a strong contender for the fact that, come what may, there may be technology, but education is holistic. You can't, there is no point where technology can be more than 50% of what happens in a classroom or what happens in education. I would think the finer aspects of life, when I spoke about skill building, building value systems, attitudes, building etiquette, building the ability to make choices, building an ability to stand by one's conviction. These are things that children need to learn through education. I mean, that's what education is all about. Technology doesn't really help us in that to a large extent. I mean, you will have these kind of programs which tells a child to choose, and then it takes you kind of to a system kind of thing. But I don't know if it really engineers a child's mental psyche, and that's where I feel we need to moderate the amount of technology that we use. Our classrooms have changed a lot over the last year and a half, with it becoming more and more student driven kind of thing. So flipped classrooms are always a part of our whole system. We've always had teachers taking classes remotely because, like I said, we have smart boards and we have cameras inside our classroom and projectors and all of that. So, teachers on leave from home take a class and the class is still attending a class, a session kind of thing. All of that has been done, but I still feel that technology did not give the complete education to a student. And therefore, I'm not a great, what will I say? I don't have that huge of an affinity for education, technology to be running education. Especially
I think we can't take away the emotional
Absolutely.
connect which we have as teachers with students. You can't take that away. I think technology so
Student
far
to
has not been
student.
able to do it.
Yeah, student to student too.
Yeah,
That's where
student
they
to
learn the
student too.
most.
You're right. You're right. I think we learn a lot more through our own engagement with our friends and our
Yes.
students right next, left and right. I mean, I think we can't take that away. It'll be many, many years now. Maybe you never know. Technology might start assessing our mood when we enter a classroom. As a face scanner tells you're in a good mood or a bad mood, and then the computer generates everything for us. You never know. Look, we were touching on a point of teachers. I'm sure when you started, you mentioned you already had technology engraved in the system, so your teachers were already trained with it.
Yes.
What kind of message would you give to the teachers, or we know that they're a very key team member of our whole system. So for them, was it easier to accept technology at that point?
Let me be very honest. I'm not a very techno-savvy person myself. You saw me struggling to log into this whole system. So I have been accommodative, forgiving, and all of that because I always believed everybody could have been in my boat. But I've also been very fortunate because I have had very strong technical support, not just from my teaching faculty, but also from my systems. We have a whole team of people who handle all our systems across our campuses. So buying in for teachers has not been easy. Many of them would have been teaching for many years or possibly never, worked with any kind of technology, but we handheld them over many years. We still do. For instance, like, I in fact had to call my executive assistant just now to ask her what's happening. I'm not able to log in, kind of thing. So we've had those kind of support systems. Every time there's something new, for instance, today my teachers are being trained for getting augmented reality, creating sessions of augmented reality in their classrooms. So there's a teacher there's one of my faculty training a group of teachers doing that, and typically Saturdays are meant for teacher enhancement programs. So we've had a couple of cases where they just wouldn't be able to accommodate, but that doesn't mean they don't have their strengths. So I've not really pushed it with all of them. People who really can't adapt have been given tasks which require their expertise, and it doesn't need to be technology. So everybody is, fruitfully occupied and has a win-win situation.
That's interesting. So earlier we were talking about career paths and the academic goals. And we know that teachers play a very key role because their engagement is far more than an independent counselor in a school or a principal. Do you think at Deens Academy you have a system, or are your teachers able to guide students or help students through challenges of career, choosing the right career paths? Are they trained for it?
Well, so children my teachers are not really trained for helping children with careers. But what I've noticed is over the last years, and this is how we work it out at school, the teachers work with a certain kind of passion, which builds a certain passion in students. So, when you see a very passionate maths teacher, the child starts having an affinity towards that subject. And therefore,
Right.
as a corollary to that, they start exploring that subject a lot more. And then they start pushing the teachers' boundaries a lot more, and teachers start explaining much beyond the syllabus and curriculum and things like that. So this kind of starts unnoticed as a pattern from the time they're in early middle school. By the time they come into grade 8 and above, we have agencies which work with us on mapping children's strengths, helping them to identify their aptitude versus interests and the kind of careers that are possible. In addition to all of this, we have a system where I have experts from different fields who come and speak to the children regularly, and this is part of our whole system. In fact, we had a ventriloquist very recently too. So anybody as varied as that comes in to speak to. So children get exposed. Essentially, that's what happens. They get exposed to multiple kinds of opportunities and careers that people are part of. And then when they do this kind of 2-3 years course with this career guidance company that we are tied up with, they more or less have I'm not saying 100%, but more or less many of them are very clear about what they're going ahead with. But having said that, again, we have no clue what kind of careers are going to be available 5 years from now. So that's something that we constantly talk to children about. Keep your eyes open for opportunities and keep your mind open to new kind of things that happen your way, because you never know that they might be trained in a certain thing, and 5 years into their careers they feel there's something more interesting and they might just jump. And so the ability to, like I said earlier, the ability to adapt, change, learn is something that we have to equip them with.
No, I totally understand. I think the avenues are opening up, career opportunities are opening a lot more, and that's ever changing. I have another interesting question for you. So I know you're a professionally trained Bharatanatyam dancer.
Yes.
You're
Mohiniyattam, actually, classical dancing.
Classical dancing. And you're also Dr. E. Sridharan's daughter. A lot of pressure there. Most respected and most lovable, the metro man of this country. And I think your husband's also the co-founder, CEO for Big Basket. You seem to be the odd one person out and going into the education sector and a teaching sector. what made you move that direction and pick up the academic line and teaching line?
All right. So, well, that has always been my ambition. I recollect from the time that is, as far as I can remember in my childhood, I was always possibly the lure of that red pen. I loved putting those red ticks. So I think that's where it all started. I was, in fact, slated to move into the line of architecture. So, but I deliberately chose to move here because while the red pen was a lure, by and by, as I started, getting into this whole system of education, I realized that nobody better than nobody except in this career can really make a change. And, of course, give that future an opportunity. So I believe that, whoever my father or my husband is, I think my position is far more powerful than any of theirs.
Very true. Very true. Well said. Yeah. And I think you're a very good example for your own school where you say that you have different career paths and you can still be a leader in the education sector, and you just don't need to be a techie or choose that line to work with. Yeah, I totally. I think it's good. So, what message would you give to the current youths? We all know there are a lot of challenges. Sitting at home, learning on a computer, not having the same emotional connect. What message would you give them to the youth and the aspiring students?
Well, I would like to stick to what I have been saying so far, that, as cliched as it would sound, change is a constant. And every child should learn to hone the ability of, embracing the change, innovating, adapting to it. So even while, the pandemic has crippled a lot of children, I find some certain hugely resilient children. They're so innovative. In fact, they help the teachers in the classroom. And that's something I think children should start being aware of, because it's easier for children to adapt and change than we adults are. I would also like to leave this with children that, come what may, your attitude and values will take you far higher than any kind of, fat check paying job that will take you. So you have to cultivate the ability to be happy with what you're doing. Unless you're happy with what you're doing, you're not going to, really feel engaged or, feel that you're living life fully. So I would think largely the philosophy of the Ikigai is what I would give every student. Find your passion, and that will find you your career, and that will make you do good for the world.
Interesting. Yes, indeed it will. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for sharing your insights today. It was lovely to have you. And best of luck for Deens Academy. I'm sure you don't have big ambitions of opening 5-10 schools, but if you do, I think it'll do wonders for the society and for the children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.